So how I became a math specialist was really by chance. That was nothing that I actually had planned on doing. Um, so what ended up happening with the campus I was at when I was in Crowley ISD, I was at Mary Harris Intermediate. And so originally I was at the school called S.H. Crowley. And so when I first got to S.H. Crowley, it was just two intermediate schools in the district. And so my second year, they added two more intermediate schools. And so my second year there, they instead of our campus staying at S.H. Crowley, they just moved the entire staff over to Mary Harris Intermediate. And then they moved another staff into the S.H. Crowley. And then there was another campus called David Walker. So we had four intermediate schools that all the elementary school kids fed into. And so why that's important is because the principal that I had when I first got to S.H. Crowley ended up getting a job over at a school in Arlington ISD at a middle school there. And then so I had a new principal at Mary Harris Intermediate my first year. So my first 2 years there, I had two principals. That principal that was with us the first year at Mary Harris Intermediate ended up getting a job in another school district after her first year, and then another principal came in. There was some familiarity with the second principal because she was the assistant principal when we were at S.H. Crowley, but it was still another first year principal. And so then after her first year, they moved her over to the middle school, and now we got another principal. So in my 4 years of teaching at this intermediate school, Mary Harris Intermediate, I have and between S.H. Crowley and Mary Harris Intermediate, I had four different administrators. And so why that's important is where there was a lack of stability when it came to, I guess you would say, the leadership on our campus. And in fact, it was obviously a lack of stability with even the staff too, because if you have that much turnover, you also have people in and out. But there was a core group that had been there since I got there, and there was a core group that was there before I even got there. And so, I had built up a decent reputation as a pretty solid teacher. And so, in fact, even in 2011, I was Teacher of the Year at Mary Harris. So the first year the school was in existence, I was the Teacher of the Year at the campus. And so, what ended up happening for me to become a math specialist is, so the principal we had my fourth year there was what used to be the assistant principal at the middle school that our students fed into. And so what ended up happening prior to her becoming the principal was the year I was Teacher of the Year back in 2011, I had this one student in my class that was they were a special ed student, a special needs student, that the parent was definitely on top of everything. They were on top of top of the district. They used to bring advocates to the ARD, possibly a lawyer to the ARD. I think they had litigated against the district at some point. So the district was very focused on making sure this parent had everything she needed, because this parent was always making sure that the district did whatever they were supposed to do for her child, which a parent should do. And so they had made sure this kid was in my particular class because they knew I had the background with special ed education students. And so I worked very well with this parent. Like, it was all about communication. I made sure I communicated every single day. She wanted to come and sit in and watch me, observe me teaching, and I always made it a point to make her feel comfortable about doing it. She'd be back there taking notes. I would send her any information that she needed. If I ever messed up, I'd apologize. And so I was really good with this particular parent. And I think where she really appreciated it the most was that I always made sure that her child was included in everything. So when we played, I used to coach our little intramural team. He was on the team. Whether it was football, whether it was basketball, I always put him on the team. Not only did I put him on the team, he played. I made sure that he felt like just one of the kids. And I wanted the kids to actually, embrace him. And so, I just understood those things. And I didn't necessarily just do it for him. It was one of those things, I did it because I just understood, based on my prior experience, how those kind of kids, how they felt. Like, you already know that there's something different because you're getting different treatment, and you also know that you're not learning at the same level as everybody else or same rate as everybody else. And so, you just want to create that comfort. Comfort creates confidence, and then those are the things that, you can't necessarily do through instruction. You have to, that's part of, in my opinion, what teaching is. Teaching is about creating confidence. Teaching is about, making someone believe they can do something that you teach them how to do. And so, create an environment for that. And so he ended up, passing his state test. Mom was very happy with that. It wasn't just me. He had an inclusion teacher that was every much as important of a factor, that came in and made sure that he had the accommodations that he needed, modifications that he needed, as far as, we worked hand in hand, but, it was definitely not just me by myself. But, the part I'd say I played the greatest role in was making him feel comfortable, making Mom feel comfortable, and then working with the teacher, the inclusion teacher, to make sure that, what we were doing was synergizing to meet the needs of him as well as the other special needs students that were in my classroom. So since he was a sixth grader, he had to go over to the middle school. And so, you at that point, you may do like a transition art to kind of hand over the information to the middle school to make sure that they're aware of everything that we were doing in order to make sure that everything stays the same once the student trans over. Particularly for this student, like you definitely want him, you want his mother to feel comfortable, especially now that she's definitely in a good place. And so we had this R. The principal from the middle school came over to the R with his team, and we went through everything that we had been doing that year. I explained everything, and so as we're leaving, and our principal's in there as well. So as the meeting's ending, the principal had to leave from the middle school, and he kind of like did like a double take look at me, like kind of like he wanted to say something, and then he kind of jokingly said, he was like, "You want to come work at the middle school?" He's like, because he looked at my principal and said, I'll steal teachers. And then of course she's like, no, he's one of my best teachers. He's my teacher of the year. You're not taking him, and all that. So it was all fun and jokes, banter that was taking place within the room. Thought nothing of it. Fast forward to not next year, but the following year, the principal that comes over, she used to work with that particular principal. So apparently he went back to the school, and he talked about how good of a teacher that they have over. He was speaking of me, how good of a math teacher that I was over at the intermediate school. And so I guess maybe he was like, we'll figure out how to get him over here, whatever they kind of talked about. And so she remembered that. And then before she actually came over to the school, when she got the job, he told her, remember, you got a really good math teacher over there. And so stars kind of had a line to where the math specialists that had been on our campus the entire time I had been there ended up getting a job at the district level. And so now there was an opening for the job. And so the new assistant principal at the campus, said, hey, go check out the website and see if there's something that interests you. And I go look at the website, and it was an opportunity to the math specialist position on our campus. I didn't know that this person was leaving. And so I immediately applied for the job. I sent them my cover letter, sent them my resume. I did everything as formal as possible. And then I went and talked to the principal just to let her know, that I was interested and just see what my chances were of getting the job. And so she filled me in on everything I just talked about before. She filled me in on when her principal came over and talked about it a couple years ago, and then he reminded her at that point in time. And so I interviewed for the position maybe a week or two later. I did, what you're supposed to do when you interview. I dressed up in a suit that day, went in there during my conference period, and I answered the questions as if I I didn't think that I was going to get. I answered the questions as if I didn't know if I was going to get the job or not. I answered the questions as if I was a candidate off the street, and I brought in, how I would go about doing things, what I would do, since I had inside information about how things had been run before. This is what I would do differently, and so I think I did a decent enough job of selling myself at the time. I mean, being honest, I probably may have already had the job based on the the way that they kind of already had a perception of me to begin with, and so it was. But I always looked at I could also go in there and lose the job too. Based on having some level of arrogance of thinking that this is something that I'm entitled to. So I treat it like any other opportunity that was a new opportunity. So it all worked out to where I was able to secure the job, and so after the first 6 weeks, I started and transitioned over to being the math specialist on the campus.